welcome. We're going to wait 1 second while a few more people come into the room. We're about to get going really like 45 seconds. Just hold tight for a sec and we'll get going. A few more people coming in. A few more people coming in. Okay, let's get started. My name is Jay Rosenthal. I'm the co-founder and managing director of Business of Cannabis. Welcome to our third retail series of 2022. And this one is also super topical, as was last month's. Today, we're here how to prepare your cannabis retail store or dispensary for the 4/20 holiday. Since 2017, through news, insights, video, and podcast series, as well as events, we at Business of Cannabis have highlighted the companies, brands, people, and trends driving the cannabis industry. We look to do that every day, and we look to do that here as well. As we begin, we wish to acknowledge this land in which we live and work here in Toronto. For the thousands of years, it's been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit River. Today, this place is still the home to many Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island, and we're grateful to have the opportunity to live and work on this land. This year, our retail series is made possible by two incredible partners, Leafly and Vetrina Group. Leafly is the leading consumer acquisition tool for more than 7,800 brands and 4,600 retailers who use Leafly to connect with millions of shoppers every year. You can connect with your cannabis business to an incredible industry-leading audience and start capturing more customers and orders than ever before with the Leafly Retail Solutions. We'll put a link in below so you can get in touch with them. And Vetrina Group, they are experts in consumer journeys, providing data-driven solutions and working with their retail teams to ensure their clients achieve operational excellence. We'll hear from Krista Raymer of Vetrina Group later in the program. And it isn't just Leafly and Vetrina Group. We're able to do programs like this through partnerships, and our ongoing partners at Business of Cannabis include CanDelta, who we heard from actually this morning talking about Ontario regulatory updates, Torque and Mains, Cannabis Benchmarks, Gallagher in Canada, Headset, who we'll also hear from today, Cannabis at Work as well. And just a bit of an overview about today's program. First, we're going to connect with two leading retailers, one Canadian one and one multi-state operator, to talk about what 4/20 means to their operations and how they're prepared. The Canadian version is Lisa Bigioni from Stok'd Cannabis, and then Dalyn Oakes from Jars Cannabis. Then we'll be joined by Krista Raymer of Vetrina Group to talk through a proper 4/20 strategy for cannabis retailers or dispensary, from staffing to pricing to inventory to merchandising, really an operational look at preparing for 4/20. Then we'll do a deep dive into some 4/20 historical data from our partners at Headset, looking at the who shops and what they want to buy on 4/20. That'll be with Cooper Ashley from the Headset team. As always, after the main stage component of the event, we'll open up the breakout session so you can go face-to-face with the speakers and presenters, and we'll also open up the one-on-one networking component, which we like to call as sort of a businessy speed dating. Others call it high-speed dating, obviously. Get it? Well, during the program, you will see my colleague, Tara McManus, who'll be posting updates in the chat, some links to our speakers, and how to say hi to them and get connected after the event. You could say hi to Tara over there as well. Give me one moment and we'll be right back, first with Lisa Bigioni, the co-founder of Stok'd Cannabis. Lisa, thanks for being here.
Always a pleasure, Jay.
It is always a pleasure. I like talking to you because I feel like almost more than anybody else that we've talked to over time, you always have something that like has just launched and you're like, and you like execute against it. That's always great to see. So congratulations. So tell us about your current footprint of Stok'd right now, because it has changed from not that long ago and we talk to you fairly frequently.
Yeah, sure. So we have two stores open in Scarborough. Our first opened in February of last year and the second opened in May of last year. And then just last week, we opened a pretty killer store in Niagara Falls, right on Stanley Avenue. That's super Canadiana. So it's kind of built with locals and tourists in mind, and everybody's got to see it. It's pretty amazing.
Tell us about that store in particular, because I like the location, right? Like, you know, Niagara Falls is a huge tourist attraction, and now it's coming back, and there's more and more people coming post this portion of COVID, I guess. But talk a little bit about the strategy behind the location and the city itself.
Sure. So, of course, I started in Niagara Falls with the Choom store. So it definitely has a special place in my heart. And we had this opportunity for a space on Stanley Avenue. The unit was originally actually called, and it still is called, Climax Corvettes. It's a 5,000 square foot space, and
Wow.
he's the landlord is a Corvette restoration specialist. So when he approached us with the space, we said, oh, it's kind of big. So long story short, we negotiated that we're in the front half of the space and he's moved his business into the back. So we have about 2,000 square feet in the front, super Canadiana. We've got a 7-foot carved beaver in the front foyer. We've got like real tree trunks. We've got a fire pit with Muskoka chairs around it. We've got a carving wall that's been really exciting for all of our customers. Everyone gets to carve their initials.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm serious.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's
it's
cool.
pretty killer. Yeah.
I've never seen that.
It's exciting. Yeah. So it's, our strategy is definitely around tourism and promoting Canadiana and all that is cannabis in Canada, but it's also really about locals, and we have membership programs for the locals in the area. So yeah, we're really excited.
Well, kudos to you, because I know we've talked about Niagara Falls for a long time with you, and it's great to see that shop open, and maybe we'll get a glimpse of not only the carving wall and the beaver, but also some slick Corvettes as we roll up. I will definitely get there. But today we're talking about 420 and sort of what that means for cannabis retailers and dispensaries in the States. Talk a little bit about sort of how you think about 420, like from a staff perspective or an inventory perspective, or just really like, how do you build around that sort of cannabis holiday?
Yeah, so really we are looking at it really as a cannabis holiday, not really a special sales day, although certainly sales do increase. On 420, we were open last year just for about 2 months in our first store, and we certainly saw an uplift in sales, about 12%, I think. We'd only been open for around 2 months.
Right.
And of course it was COVID and all that had to influence the day and the week, in fact. So now that we've been through it once, we now have 3 stores to deal with. We'll probably deal a little bit differently in our Scarborough stores, something a little more local. We're going to focus on the culture around it, not necessarily the deals and sales that we're going to offer, because we really feel like, the sentiment behind 420 has, everybody knows it's evolved from, the group that initially started, that coined the term, to, fighting for legalization, to now celebrating that legalization, at least here in Canada. So we're kind of all about that. We will have some bundles. We're going to certainly stock up and make sure that we have everything that everybody's looking for. And then in Niagara Falls, because we have just opened, and as anyone who's opened a store knows, there are always a few things that are kind of not quite done when you open your doors. And for us, we're still missing our big, beautiful pylon sign outside, and we're still finalizing and tweaking some things inside. So we're going to actually officially launch our opening, have a grand opening on 420. And we're also actually participating in the 420 Expo in Niagara Falls, which is on the 23rd. So we're going to kind of use that week to really launch the store and kind of let everybody know that we're there.
I like that. I like it, and build it sort of into the daily operations, but also use it as a way to sort of celebrate both the community, but also the launch of the store in Niagara Falls. And I guess, even I'm trying to think of the past 420s, like it's been a rocky road for Canadian retailers over the past 3 years. And then there weren't that many before then even. And I guess sort of thinking about aspirationally, like it is a good time because it's like a holiday you don't share with anybody else. Like that's the beauty of it. And it is, I mean, we're talking to the folks at Headset after this, and we've looked at some of their data in advance, and it is a big sales day, 100% more, or whatever the numbers is, 65%, depending on the location. And though we've also, we've talked to Krista, Raymer at Vetrina Group over time, and know that, well, like big sales days like that generally have a dip right after. And it sounds like you're thinking about that too, and not offering, not giving it all away, certainly not giving it away, but thinking about the pricing structure in advance of that day to not like undercut your future sales, right? Like, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, but yeah, we are thinking of it as more like, like we would celebrate Canada Day, and not, in the same way that we would discount for Black Friday or
Right.
Boxing Day, right? It's just more of a celebration. And one thing we're going to do, particularly in our Scarborough stores, but we'll do it in Niagara as well, is we're going to have notation around the stores, and we're working on a postcard to put in the bags that explains to people what 420 is and why it's even a thing in the first place. Because as we all know, our customer base has expanded since pre-legalization, and not everyone who comes into our stores for their, their gummies or their drinks or their chocolates or their weed was necessarily a part of the culture pre-legalization, and so may not even know what 420 is all about, right? So we're kind of really pushing or talking about that angle and why we're celebrating it in the first place. So of course we'll have some deals, we'll have some bundles, we'll have some things on sale, but it's really more about kind of educating everyone about why 420 exists and, our part in it.
Yeah, and using it as an education lever as well. I
Yeah.
love it.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited, and I want to not on this, but I want to compare calendars when you're going to be in Niagara, because I want to plan my trip to Niagara Falls when you're going to be there. I want to see the new store, and then maybe we'll start in Scarborough, do a whole sort of golden horseshoe all the way around to Niagara Falls.
We need your initials and carved in the wall.
I got to practice what I would carve. I don't want to be half-assed. I really gotta plan it.
Serious.
Actually, I want to hear about that, because this is not related to 420 necessarily, but sort of the experiential nature of the shop and differentiating it that way. And certainly you've put a huge emphasis on it. Like, how do customers respond to that? And sort of what are some of the sort of core strategies you think about as you've built out these three shops?
So our first two shops in Scarborough are pretty small form factors. So they're both like 800 square feet each. So we're super Canadian, very cottage themed, camping themed, in fact, with a little bit of retro thrown in. So my experience growing up in Scarborough in the 80s is thrown in there, as well as some very much a camping theme in Northern Ontario. So we've taken that to Niagara, and we've, with a much larger storefront, we've really expanded, and we've built in fact, we have a fire pit where you can sit around, and once you buy your weed, we're thinking that you can go and sit down and roll your joints if you're not buying pre-rolls. So we've got that going on. We've got tons of really cool merch because, that's what people are on vacation in Niagara Falls and like to buy t-shirts and hats and all of that sort of thing. We've got incredible murals. We've got the carving wall. It's kind of got everything. It's super Canadiana, and that's exactly what we wanted. We wanted to really represent Canada to all of the nationalities that come through Niagara Falls.
That's great. I can't wait to see it. I really can't. I like Niagara Falls, but I think I'm going to love this store. So I'm really looking at a day where I can drive out and visit the store. Lisa, it's always nice to connect with you. Congratulations on the new store opening, the stores that are opened, getting to 420. And we'll connect with you down the road. Good luck.
Thanks so much. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Lisa.
Bye.
Thank you, Lisa. Coming up in a moment, I'll bring on Dalyn Oakes. He's the Director of Growth at Jars Cannabis. They have an ever-expanding footprint retail in Arizona and in Michigan. So really, they have a market for any season you want. I'll be right back with Dalyn Oakes. Just hold tight. Dalyn, thanks for being here.
You got it, man. Thank you for having me.
You got it. I was looking, so obviously you're from Jars Cannabis. It's great to have you. You've never been on before. That's also great. And I was looking at the distribution of where your shops are, and it seems like a good place to work if you do not like either Michigan winters or Arizona summers.
That's right. We got both ends of the spectrum. So come over during the summer to AZ, and when it gets too hot, you got a place to stay up north. So
I love it. Tell us about the footprint before we begin. Tell us about Jars' footprint in both states, but overall.
Yeah. So Jars is relatively new to the space, early 2019 here in Arizona and in Michigan currently. We have 4 licenses here in Arizona up and running. 3 are medical and rec. The one up in Payson is just a rec as of now. What we're doing is trying to submit a bill to allow medical for those outlier licenses as well. So we're pretty excited about that. But for here in Arizona, we actually have 28 licenses in Michigan. Not all are up and operational, but we're trying to get those up, a couple months at a time. But realistically, across those two states, having 32 licenses kind of positions us, fairly well, especially in two of the markets that we feel are the strongest here in the United States. So very, very excited. Obviously, every day brings more projects, more room for growth, and we're obviously constantly sharpening our blade and trying to improve as best we can.
Well, you're in charge of growth, so it's a good self plug in that respect. I want to ask you, so we're focused today on 420 and preparing for the 420 holiday, whether you are sort of mom and pop dispensary or cannabis retailer, or have a much bigger footprint or even a slightly bigger footprint. Talk about how you think about it from JAR's perspective. Is it like down to the store level? Do you have some things that are, company wide, or are there things that are like regional? How are you thinking about it? And I'm thinking like, pricing and staffing and promotions and merchandising. Like, how special a day is it? And sort of how does that come to life within your realm?
Yeah, well, it's a very special day. It's our Christmas in the industry. So it's the most important day. It's where all the other industries kind of point their attention towards cannabis. And I think it's something that cannabis deserves. And in the long run, we will be an industry powerhouse really. And ultimately that day is very advantageous for us to be firing on all cylinders. So there are some things that we keep in line state to state, and then there's some things we differentiate on. Obviously, you're going to have different demographics within those two regions. So products are obviously going to be different. Pricing will probably be different. And then the demographics themselves, they like certain items better than others. So the things that we keep in line with each other is obviously our brand image, brand guidelines, our loyalty program, our customer service, and the back end side of things. The operation's pretty standard there. Working close with the vendors, our business model is that high selection, great everyday prices that creates that retention with the customer base, which then the brands want to work with us more because we have that high foot traffic and the high sell-through rates. So, leveraging those brands to help us promote and get those net new customers is in our best interest. And the way we do that is by, creating that wheel of retention, right? If we have customers coming in every single day, that means for those brands, those are customers that they aren't already getting. JARS is a great place to kind of capture those new customers. And in the same sense, on the umbrella type for Michigan and Arizona, our loyalty program, I think is the strongest in the industry. It's roughly a 2.5% cashback value, but with our high selection, with our everyday low pricing, when you factor that in there too, that's that back half that gets that customer to return. And giving back to the customers is our number one most important trait.
I want to ask on two fronts, sort of things you just mentioned. How does that translate down to like how you prepare or like staff up for the day, because it's going to be a busy one, and how do you bring that brand either every day of the sort of JARS brand to your frontline staff, especially on incredibly busy days? And then we'll get to the other question too.
Yeah, so the staffing is the most important part, right? This is Black Friday for cannabis. And we obviously have Green Wednesday as well, but first comes this 420. And we want to make sure that we're adhering to all the wants and needs and questions, concerns of those customers and patients, but two, getting them, in and out of the shop in relatively a low time. So making sure we're answering those, but then also, servicing as many customers as quickly as we can. It's a kind of a fine line there. But as long as that customer leaves happy, that's what we're after. So we do staff heavy. We understand that this is an opportunity as an operator in retail to establish yourself to net new customers. Like I was suggesting earlier, you're going to get some customers that come out that have maybe never tried cannabis before, that they say, hey, my entry to market's a little bit too high. But if you're going to have these great deals and great savings, maybe now is that good time to come in and try it out and see if it does, work for me. Yeah. So I think, taking a little bit of a hit on an overhead standpoint can end up paying off long term.
a long-term thing as opposed to sort of a one day. I want to ask about, you talked about your retention plan, you're talking about your loyalty program. Like how much in advance do you start talking to your sort of core customers, the people that are return customers, about what's going to happen on 420 in terms of pricing, product, availability? Like, does it start, now, even in March, or is it like 1 week out, 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out? There's a whole drumbeat on the marketing side.
Yeah, that's a great question. So jars, if you've ever been in any jars location or you're a customer, patient of ours, we bring the deals, we bring the savings. That's what our business model is to save you, the consumer, as much money as possible, to try and get that upfront price for us, the wholesale cost, down as far as possible. And we don't eat and soak up any margin. At the end of the day, if we get a product for 20, selling it to you at 40. There's some retailers that'll put that at 50 to kind of mitigate their operational overhead. Once again, we want that retention to stay as high as possible, so that savings we extend to them. So when you're going to one operation to, say, a jars, and you see that price discrepancy of 10-20%, it's pretty eye-opening, and that's kind of how we capture those customers. So realistically, the price point, especially on this big of a day, is this is our time to shine and really get new customers into the industry that we're not already servicing.
Yeah. Are you jazzed?
Yeah. I'm so jazzed.
Because I'm looking back at the last several Aprils, and there were some spikes in COVID in April, like the past couple of years, and this one hopefully will be different as we're a couple of weeks out. But how, I guess, how do you, not so much even on the store level, but how do you build and hype that excitement from a corporate perspective as too, and make it part of your culture?
Yeah, you don't want to tailor the buying habits too much, right? Like if you're giving up the full rainbow, the full array, it's like, well, I'm not going to make any purchase until then. Right. So it's a detailed and fine line of how much you want to release, but we also do want to build up that hype. So as mentioning jars, we like to bring savings. So we started 420 on 320 this year. So every day from 320 through the end of April, we're bringing heavy promotions, heavy savings, and we do market that. So every day, text and email blasts. We do industry email blasts through third-party providers, Leafly, weed maps takeovers, programmatic and online displays, conquesting, lots of different things. We have exclusivity in the back of Lyfts and Ubers. So if you're ever in Arizona and taking a Lyft and Uber anywhere, you're going to see our ad back there on the tablets. And we promote these things, right? 100 BOGOs during the month of April, voted #1 in prices and selection in the state. Things like this are big calls to action for customers to see that might not already shop at jars or know of jars, that are pretty big statements. #1 in selection, #1 in pricing. Right there, you got my attention. You have what I want, and you have it for the best price. What's better than that? So, at the end of the day, we do release it up front, about 2 to 3 weeks in advance, not really giving the fine details, but just letting them know that, hey, we're going to take care of you throughout this entire month. This is your month, and we see that as an operator as it's a golden nugget just sitting there ready to take, and if you're willing to take that initial hit, so to speak, your long-term benefit and gain will be exponential.
It's using it really as a lever for a month-long marketing, customer engagement, staff preparation, all those things, and growth. I want to let you go, but one thing caught my mind when I was reading the Jars website is you had Canada's favorite cannabis snowboarder, Ross Bigioni, out, I think, in Michigan for a ride the rails type of event on snowboards. And that's near and dear to every Canadian's heart. Many people will reference Smoke a Fatty with Bigioni. So it was good to see that he's still has his mark in the States as well. So kudos on that event. I think it was in February. And thanks for spending time today. We look forward to following up with jars along the way, and good luck on 420.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me, Jay. I appreciate your time, and look forward to speaking again soon.
Great. Talk soon.
All right, man.
Thank you, Dalyn. Good to connect with you for the first time here on a Business of Cannabis event. We're proud to call Krista, Raymer, and the Vetrina Group our partners and have for a long time. And Krista is the co-founder of Vetrina Group to talk about preparing operations for 420. I also want to point you, we'll put them in the link on the side as well. We launched a series between the February retail series and now that is call our retail experts, a part of our expert series. And Krista is the retail expert. She goes through merchandising, pricing, staffing, a whole bunch of floor plan, some really great insights. We'll also post how to watch those below. But I'll be right back with Krista Raymer to talk about preparing operations for 420. Krista, thank you for being here for our monthly retail series. Welcome.
Jay, thanks for having me. As
since
always.
The last time, I'm glad we could have you, but actually since the last one we did, and this one we've actually released, you are the retail expert. We released a bunch of your retail expert, and they've been really well received, importantly by me, because now I know a lot more than I did before we released them. And actually some of my questions about 420 are gonna reference back to those, if that's okay.
Totally, let's do it.
Let me start with the broad question, like how important is 420 for retailers?
Yeah, I mean, 420 is one of the largest holidays that we see a lift in revenue compared to the surrounding days in the entire year. There's 420, and then there's like everything that happens around the holidays with Christmas and New Year's and those dates. And so it's really important as a retailer. What becomes even more important, though, is the strategy that gets developed and how we can leverage the additional eyeballs that we have from our customers around the holiday specifically. So it's like making sure that we're not leaving money on the table and connecting with the right customers who are ready to purchase.
Yeah, it actually got me thinking that there isn't like an alcohol holiday. I mean, they're all alcohol holidays, they're all weed holidays too, but this one is specifically about cannabis, which is great. Like you think about, there's New Year's and that sort of can carry you through January. There's long weekends in February. March, there's spring break for the younger set or parents who have to go away. And then, April is this big holiday. And I guess like when you're talking to retailers, like obviously you tell them this is an important holiday and they know that, like what types of things are you telling them that they ought to think about or be prepared for as the holiday nears?
The good news is that Cooper from Headset is going to drill into some of the demographics around who's shopping at 420. Right. But when we think about building promotions, what we want to be able to do is say, what are the products that we want to feature, or what's our strategy around highlighting those products, and who are we trying to tell this story to? Because those are going to mutually inform what types of promotions we're building and then who we're trying to attract. And so based off of who is engaged with 420, there is the customer base that we already know is invested in this holiday. And then there's an entire customer base that doesn't really accessing the store in that way. And so it provides kind of two different distinct communication strategies around what promos we're running and how we get in touch with those people.
Yeah, and I guess and now harkening back to the retail expert, does it impact sort of all the areas you talked about so far in the retail expert, like hiring and training and staffing, inventory and pricing, floor plan, merchandising, like the whole bit, right?
The whole bit. It's almost like a microcosm of developing a store just around one particular holiday. So at Vetrina Group, we like to kind of think about the store and the way that we measure the performance of a store in a triangle. First one is with data and KPIs. So how is the store performing? What's the quality of sales? So we're going to look at averages per customer. We're going to look at units per transaction. We want to review where we were last year at 420, what we want to hit this year. Next step is usually an inventory and assortment. So what products are we going to carry? When are we going to carry them? And how are we going to highlight them? That becomes how they get merchandised, where they show up on menu boards, all of those pieces. Then we're going to look at the people and the hiring around this. So do we need to amp up any of our scheduling for around the holiday? What additional training do our budtenders need to be able to either talk about the promotions or be able to increase the averages per basket because our customers are already in the doors? And then we look at kind of like what the marketing message is going to be. And so if we do it in that way, we're ensuring that we're planning our outcomes first, so what we want to achieve, and then that helps inform everything else.
Yeah, it's it is this microcosm of sort of a store. I guess you'd reference like one 420 to the next, but we know a lot of stores have opened, at least in Ontario and in Canada, and even new markets in the States since last 420. So this might be their first one. Is there a unique opportunity to like double down with your current customers, but also potentially bring in new people, and how do you cater to them? Like how do retailers think about that?
Yeah, I think like 420 is a little bit of historical data and more so what has been happening in your store leading up to the date, right? So we have to take historical data with a grain of salt and then layer on the qualitative and quantitative aspects of running the store leading up to the actual holiday. So with that, what we want to be doing is thinking about what customers we can already access and where there might be an opportunity to acquire a new one. The reality is that 420 offers an opportunity to create an additional purchase that maybe lays outside of the purchasing cadence of the customer. So let's give an example. You have 10 customers that are regularly engaged. Maybe they buy once a month. 420 offers us an opportunity to add an additional purchase in April outside of their April purchase. So we want to be able to leverage that. Now, of your 10, maybe they bring 3 friends with them. We've just added 3 new customers. And so what we want to be able to do is look at what pre-existing customers we're bringing to the store, and then what new ones we acquire on 420, because our follow-up conversations after 420 should inform those 2 data points. So who went outside of their regular buying cadence and who's new, because then we can communicate with them very different messages, whether that be in e-blasts or text messages.
Can I ask you a question? And I know we're going to get into it with Cooper as well at Headset, but you've been diving deep on this too. Like how big or what kind of lift are we talking about, either from an individual, like buying, like adding another purchase to the month, or in that basket there's more? Like is it like a whole nother month based around 420, or is it like some percentage of, like what types of lift are we looking for, just so we can gauge like how important it really is?
Cooper's got awesome data actually with this specifically to look at the lift in by category. The lift in Canada has looked a little bit different than the lift in the US. That could be just general awareness around the holiday. And as we kind of come into this one, we have less COVID restrictions than we did last year. And so there's a lot of different avenues that we could see a big change. What we want to do though is think about what kind of percentage of increase versus the other days around it. So we can project a percentage of increase that's going to tell us if we need more team members, how much additional inventory we're going to need. And we can really forecast properly. So Cooper's going to deep dive into what that looks like in the day, specifically in the surrounding days, as well as category changes. So what products and what categories perform really well. As a tidbit, it is usually impulse-based products. So it's the products that are easily accessible, lower barrier to entry, and don't require a lot of other tools for consumption.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question? Thinking about the day of the week, like it's, you know, it happens on a Wednesday, which is probably not great. Like, I mean, I'm going to ask you, like, is it great because now you have a huge Wednesday where Wednesday was generally a down day, or is it like, wouldn't it be great if it was a Saturday night and everybody went, or do you get an extra day because people are going to come back potentially on Friday and Saturday to buy their usual stuff? Like, is it a benefit or a curse that it's on a Wednesday?
I think it depends on how we want to look at it and what the promotion strategy and length of the promotion is. There would be lots of people that look at it and say, hey, we actually have an opportunity to extend it either after into the weekend or before the weekend, kind of leading up to it. It does offer us an opportunity to communicate more with our customer around it, with it being in the middle of the week. We're going to always see a drop off right after 420. So we have to go into this realizing that it could impact what are usually our busiest days, the Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and acknowledging what your unintended consequences of your promotions are will directly relate to how measurable that is. So if we, for example, mark down the entire store 20%, we're going to definitely have an unintended consequence that the product that we usually sell later in the week might not sell in the same cadence. We might not even see those customers come to the store. So when building promotional strategies, we want to think about that it is in the middle of Wednesday. And what are our unintended consequences around when we are building a promotion? Is it going to kill our sales after, or is it an opportunity for us to get a customer to purchase something that maybe they wouldn't have historically purchased, but we want to either tease that product specifically or that category to our customer base?
Yeah. And then it's a long run to, well, May 2-4 here in Canada, or Memorial Day in the States. Krista, as always, I've learned a ton talking to you. People can get in touch with you. We put in the chat how they can do that. Thank you for your time today and your partnership on this specific series of events, but also the expertise you're showing on the Retail Expert. And we'll put links to all that as well. As always, thank you. And any big plans for 420?
I am hoping to go to a new market and experience 420 in a new market. So I'm really excited.
Me too.
And I will share some insights about that. But thanks for having me, Jay. And we will also be in the chat after to answer any questions that come up.
Great. Love that chat. It is, if people haven't stayed, let me put a mid-program plug into what's going to happen after the program. It is
the chat's where it's at.
It's a very dynamic conversation, which I love being part of because you learn a lot just from the questions people are asking, obviously the answers as well. But thank you for being here. Thank you for partners. Thank you for being the Retail Expert. Thank you for joining us in the chat as the program ends. Thank you, Krista.
Okay, thanks, Jay.
Thank you, Krista. As always, we're going to be joined in a second by Cooper Ashley. He's been with us before on Business of Cannabis. He'll join us in a moment to talk about the data and insights behind 420. He's with the Headset team. They have unbelievable historical data about who, what, and why people are buying. So I'll be right back with Cooper Ashley. Cooper, thanks for being here again.
My pleasure.
Well, we love hearing stuff from Headset, which is our official insights partner here at Business of Cannabis. And talking about 420 is one of those things where I feel like we could learn a ton from you. So I'm going to pepper you with questions for your stuff. Is that okay?
Absolutely. Yeah. I've been tracking 420s for quite a few years now. So
well, that's actually that I'm good because this is going to be really critical. So earlier in the program, we talked to a retailer, talked about how she experiences 420 and what she does. We talked to Krista Raymer to talk about some of the operational things a store can do to get ready and how important that is to think about this holiday. But I want to talk to you first, like when you just said you've been tracking 420s, what happens on 420s? Like, is it a big deal or are we just making it a big deal?
Yeah, it's definitely a big deal. So out of the last 4 or 5 years, there's only been 1 year in which 420 was not the largest single day of sales in the cannabis industry. And that year was 2020, of course, when the COVID-19 pandemic was just sort of getting rolling. And we were all a little, didn't know what was going on. There was a lot less excitement to go into cannabis shops in April of 2020. But even in 2020, 420 was the second largest day of sales that year. So it was still a big deal.
Yeah.
And I think the kind of the overarching theme is that when you look at whatever day of the week 420 falls on this year, it's going to be about double the sales of a typical Wednesday. So this year is coming on Wednesday. It should be at least double the sales of a normal Wednesday as you make your plans for that big holiday.
Well, that sounds good.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big influx. We've seen basically sales more than double in the US every year. at least since 2018. And then in Canada, there's a little bit less of a response. It's more about in the 55 to 65% sales lift area. So it seems that the US customers are a little more excited about 420 than Canada, but it's still a very big deal there as well.
Yeah.
And then the other side of, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The other side of the coin is, of course, there's lots of people shopping. They're celebrating the holiday, and they're also going to be looking for an increase in discounts. So customers will be expecting those kind of promotions, and that is something that we see the market respond to. In the US, it's about a 60 to 90% increase in discounting every year. So that's a pretty big jump. It's even bigger in Canada in terms of relative discounting increases, but that's also because in Canada, the daily average discount is much lower on any given day.
And is it, who is coming too? Because I think that's important, especially for retailers who are preparing for 420. Is it your normal customers will just definitely come in on 420, or is there a demo that is more likely to come than not?
Yeah, that's actually something I looked at for the first time this year is who's shopping on 420, who's shopping more than usual. And the answer really is younger customers. So for example, last year in the US, we saw about 113% total sales increase across the entire market. Gen Z customers increased their shopping by 168%. So much higher than the market average. Whereas Generation X and baby boomer customers were actually below the market average, more about that 90% increase in sales. And then in addition to that, we've seen female customers have a pretty a higher response to 420 than male customers. So last year, female customers increased their spend by about 140% over the previous 4 weeks, whereas male customers, it was only 107%. So basically, if you're thinking about who is going to be relatively more in your store than usual on 420, it's going to be young customers and female customers.
I like it. And if you were a store, like what would you be, we actually talked to Krista and she was talking about like, what can we prepare for? What can we have in stock? Like, are there things that, are going to be selling on 420, or is it more localized than that? And people need to stay attuned to what people are buying. Like, what would be your advice to folks who are getting their store ready in terms of inventory, and actually the demographic targets too, potentially?
Sure, yeah. I'll kind of answer in two parts. First of all, sort of the categories that perform best on 420 historically, there are certain categories that do and certain categories that don't. The ones that do are categories like beverages, edibles, concentrates, flour, and pre-rolls. So that's kind of our group of top performing categories. Those are the things people want to buy. And on the other side, they all still have sales lifts because right. 420 is just everything is rising with the tide. But in terms of like the relative response, the tincture, topicals, capsules, and vapes have the smaller sales lifts. And I think we can kind of separate those two groups of products by thinking about, what do customers think about when they're buying a beverage or a pre-roll? It's more of a sort of celebratory, maybe communal experience. They're looking to indulge in something they don't often buy, and we see beverages do really well on holidays because of that. I think they're sort of a let's try something fun today type of product for a lot of customers. And then on the flip side, capsules, topicals, tinctures, they're sort of like wellness focused products, treating certain symptoms, helping you get to sleep, that kind of thing. And vapes, I think, is kind of an interesting middle ground where, vape customers, I think, are loyal to that category. It's a trusted experience. It's really easy to dose. They maybe are bought in on a certain hardware format. And I think that's not a product that you're just going to like in the celebration of the day, maybe choose to just throw into your cart when it's like a $40 cartridge and you maybe also need to buy the battery. So it's less of an indulgent add-on item.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question? Because I think it's relative to this conversation as well. And that is it seems like certainly in the Canadian landscape, just an explosion of pre-rolls, both in terms of size, multi-pack, price point. Like, are you seeing the same thing? Like, is this category growing, or is it my imagination?
No, yeah, pre-rolls are definitely doing really well. I think we have to, for a while. So when you analyze the growth of a product, a brand, a category, you have to kind of keep in mind of what you're comparing it against. And for a while, I thought pre-rolls it only seemed like they were growing because they had actually declined early in the COVID pandemic, which, again, kind of makes sense. They're a communal, sort of maybe party format. And if you want to share it with someone, you literally are putting your mouth on the same thing. So it makes sense they wouldn't do so well early in the pandemic. They've grown since then, and they've continued to grow. So they have definitely increased their market share far beyond what they were pre-pandemic. And again, we have seen it seems to be a big investment in the category from manufacturers and brands. There's a lot more sophistication in terms of, we're seeing a huge surge in infused pre-rolls in the US. That's the fastest growing segment within the category by far. It's doing really, really well. And then we're also seeing a huge movement towards multi-pack pre-rolls, which I think it's a really great move for producers to capture, instead of a customer buying 3 different $5 pre-rolls from 3 different brands. If you're a brand and you can produce a product that's so appealing that the customer wants to buy your 5-pack, it makes total sense. And they're really, I like them too. They're fun products to buy. You get those cute little cardboard boxes and all that.
And people, it's a great party thing.
Yeah.
People really do like having them.
Yeah. And they're a nice way to share the product as well.
Yeah. I want to ask a question. If you were a retailer and you talked to many and you sort of analyze data from many, many more, like what would be your, I guess, 1 or 2 words of advice as sort of how to prepare for this? Or is it just be prepared for anything or everything all the time? Like, what would be specific that you think about if I'm a shop owner, dispensary owner, like what should I be thinking about the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think so. On the day of 420, you should just be expecting massive volume, especially in comparison to a regular Wednesday. So up staff, in stock up in, especially across all products, but especially in products like beverages, edibles, pre-roll, flour, maybe concentrates as well. Those are the products that are really going to move volume on that day. And then let's see, separate to that, I would say, another point I wanted to make sure to tell you about is the increase in sales on 420 is almost entirely driven just by an increase of transaction volume. So it just means there are going to be many more customers coming into the store. Their baskets tend to be a little bit bigger than normal. They're adding more products to their cart, but they're also getting them on a discount. So the main driver of sales volume is just an increase in customers in general.
Okay, well, so that's a good thing to prepare for.
Prepare for the volume. And I would also add, especially this year with 420 landing on a Wednesday, last year was on a Tuesday, the previous year was on a Monday. Something we really have been tracking is the fact that promotions, sales volume, sort of the 420 festivities, they started on the weekend before 420 in the last couple of years. I would expect that to happen again. We're moving farther into the week, so at some point, we're right in the middle of the business week on a Wednesday, but at some point it'll switch over to maybe the following weekend. But I still think if you want to kind of get ahead of customers looking to start the party early, you want to be thinking about it like the Friday before and starting your promotions.
Got it. Hey, Cooper, this is great. This is great, great insight. I think there's going to be a lot of people here today that will be really interested in sort of thinking about and digesting this and planning ahead for the next couple of weeks. So I always appreciate your time, your insight, and your thoughtfulness, and the team at Headset, because it's a great team that we learn a lot from. So thanks for taking time.
Oh, absolutely. It's always a pleasure, Jay.
Great. Thanks, Cooper. Thank you, Cooper, Krista, Dalyn, and Lisa for being with us here today. And thank you all of you for joining us here today as well. On the left-hand side of your screen, I can't know which way I'm pointing, you'll see the sessions light up where you can join us, share your camera and microphone, and join the conversation. If you want to network, we'll open up the one-on-one networking where you can be serendipitously matched up with another cannabis professional looking to connect. Finally, we have tons of programming coming up on Business of Cannabis. You can find it all on businessofcannabis.com. I would encourage you also to follow us on social channels, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. You can find us all there. And thank you again for being here. Please do follow us online, visit our website, and we will see you in the breakout session.